Part 4. Reality didn't arrive all at once. Came slowly, then all at once. For the first few weeks, Lauren and my father seemed to believe they could still control the damage. Lauren thought she could cry her way back into sympathy. My father thought silence and dignity would protect him. Both of them were wrong. The evidence changed everything. Once my attorney had the messages, photos, and timeline, there was no longer any room for denial. There was no misunderstanding. There was no emotional separation. There was no tragic love story between two lonely people who found comfort in each other. There was only betrayal. Cold, deliberate betrayal. And the worst part, the part that made everyone stop defending them, was the timeline. Because it proved what I already knew. The affair started before my mother died. That single detail destroyed my father. Not legally, socially, morally, spiritually, if you believe in that sort of thing. My aunt, my mother's sister, was the first person outside my immediate circle to read the timeline. I didn't send it to her out of revenge. She asked for the truth because my father had been telling people that I was emotionally unstable and that Lauren and I had been having problems for years. So I sent her the proof. Not the worst photos. Not the most graphic messages. Just enough. Dates. Screenshots. A few conversations. Especially the ones from when my mother was still alive. She called me 15 minutes later. I will never forget her voice. She wasn't crying. She sounded empty. Your mother was asking him to bring her water while he was texting Lauren? I didn't answer, because there was no answer. She already had it. After that, the truth spread faster than I expected. By the end of the week, most of my mother's side of the family knew. My father tried calling them. Most didn't answer. The ones who did answer made things worse for him. One cousin told him he wasn't welcome at any family events anymore. Another told him he should be ashamed to ever visit my mother's grave again. My aunt mailed him a box of framed family photos with a note that said, "She deserved better." He called me after that. I didn't answer. Lauren called too. I didn't answer either. For once, silence was mine. And I used it. The divorce process began formally about a month after I caught them. Lauren had hired an attorney by then. Her first approach was predictable. She wanted sympathy. She claimed she had been emotionally neglected. She said I was cold. She said our marriage had been dead for years. She even claimed that my father understood her pain when I didn't. My attorney read the statement and looked at me over his glasses. "Do you want me to respond politely or honestly?" I said, "Honestly." He smiled. "Good." Our response included the timeline, messages, the birthday text where they mocked me, the messages from before my mother's death, the attempts to contact me after discovery, the false claims she made to mutual friends. Everything. Her attorney's tone changed immediately after that. Funny how that works. People get very brave when they think all you have is pain. They become much quieter when they realize you have proof. Lauren's second approach was emotional. She asked for mediation. I agreed. Not because I wanted to reconcile, because I wanted everything documented. She arrived wearing the blue dress I used to love. I noticed immediately. She had done her hair the way she wore it on our honeymoon. She wore the perfume I bought her for our 5th anniversary. Manipulation doesn't always look like screaming. Sometimes it smells like old memories. She sat across from me at the conference table with red eyes and trembling hands. For the first few minutes, she barely spoke. Then she looked at me and whispered, "I still love you." I felt nothing. That scared me more than anger would have. A few months earlier, those words might have broken me. Now they sounded like a sales pitch. My attorney shifted beside me but said nothing. Lauren kept going. "I know I destroyed everything." I said, "Yes." She flinched. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness." "No, you don't." Another flinch. Then the tears started. "I was lost." I said nothing. "I was grieving too." Still nothing. "Your father made me feel seen." That one made me laugh. Not loudly. Just enough. She looked wounded. "Please don't laugh at me." "I'm not laughing at you." "Then what are you laughing at?" The idea that sleeping with my father while my mother was dying was some kind of healing journey. The mediator looked down at his notes. My attorney stared at the table like he was trying not to react. Lauren covered her face. I hate myself. No, I said. She looked up. You hate consequences. That ended the emotional strategy. For that session, at least. After mediation, she waited in the parking lot. I expected it. My attorney had warned me not to speak to her alone, so I started recording before I walked outside. She approached quickly. Please just give me 5 minutes. No. Daniel, please. No. You're being cruel. I stopped walking. That word. Cruel. I turned around. Do you honestly think I'm the cruel one? She started crying again. I made mistakes, but you're punishing me like I'm a monster. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, You slept with my father. She lowered her voice. Stop saying it like that. Why? Because it sounds disgusting. It is disgusting. Her face twisted. For a second, the crying stopped. There she was, the real Lauren. Angry, entitled, humiliated. You know what? She snapped. Maybe if you had been more present, none of this would have happened. And there it was. The mask fully dropped. I didn't respond. I just held up my phone. You're being recorded. Her expression changed instantly. Fear. Then panic. Then tears again. Daniel, please delete that. I walked away. That recording became useful later. Not because the divorce was especially complicated. We didn't have children together, thankfully. No custody battle. No child support. Just assets, house, accounts, retirement, debt, furniture, and the slow legal dismantling of a life we built together. The hardest part wasn't dividing property. It was dividing memory, wedding photos, vacation souvenirs, books we bought together, coffee mugs from trips, the stupid ceramic bowl she bought at a farmer's market because she said it looked like something our future kids would fight over one day. I threw that one away. Maybe that was petty. I don't care. Some objects carry too much weight. My father, meanwhile, was discovering what life looked like without reputation. He had always been respected, quietly admired, the loyal husband, the grieving widower, the steady father. After the truth came out, people stopped looking at him that way. Neighbors avoided him. Old friends stopped inviting him places. My mother's church group removed him from a volunteer committee. One of his closest friends, a man who had known him for 30 years, returned a set of golf clubs he'd borrowed and told him never to call again. My father called that overdramatic. I called it consequences. The interesting thing was that he and Lauren didn't immediately become a public couple. I think part of me expected them to. After all, they had supposedly risked everything for love. But once the secrecy was gone, the magic seemed to disappear. Funny, isn't it? Affairs survive in darkness. Drag them into daylight and suddenly everyone involved looks smaller. Lauren moved into a short-term rental. My father stayed in his house. They saw each other, but quietly, carefully, not romantically, not openly, like two criminals returning to the scene of the crime. My sister told me my father complained that Lauren was too emotional. That almost made me laugh. He pursued a manipulative, dramatic, emotionally unstable woman half his age and then seemed shocked when she behaved like a manipulative, dramatic, emotionally unstable woman half his age. Lauren, meanwhile, apparently complained to mutual acquaintances that my father was becoming distant. Of course he was. My father didn't want a real relationship. He wanted a fantasy. He wanted attention. He wanted to feel powerful. He wanted to feel chosen. He didn't want a divorced woman with public shame, financial problems, and emotional dependency. And Lauren didn't want him either. Not really. She wanted validation. She wanted excitement. She wanted to feel irresistible. She wanted someone forbidden. Once he became available, he became ordinary. That was when she started contacting me again. At first through email, then letters, actual handwritten letters. Long, emotional, dramatic letters. The kind written by someone who thinks pain automatically creates wisdom. The first letter was 4 pages. She wrote about regret. She wrote about trauma. She wrote about how she had lost herself. She wrote about my mother. That was the part that made me almost throw up. She said she felt my mother's presence judging her. Good. I hope she did. She said she cried at night because she realized she had betrayed not just me, but the woman who welcomed me into her family. I didn't respond. The second letter came 2 weeks later. This one was angrier. She said my silence was abusive. She said I was dehumanizing her. She said I had turned everyone against her. She said I was enjoying her suffering. That last part wasn't entirely false. I wasn't proud of it. But yes, some part of me was glad she was finally uncomfortable. Not destroyed, not unsafe, not harmed, just uncomfortable. After everything she put me through, discomfort seemed fair. The third letter was short. I don't know who I am without you. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I finally understood something important. Lauren had never truly loved me as a person. She loved what I provided. Stability, forgiveness, patience, protection, a clean story, a safe place to return after chaos. She didn't miss me. She missed being loved by someone who would have never done to her what she did to me. That realization helped more than therapy did that week. And yes, I started therapy. I resisted at first. I had that typical stubborn male reaction. I'm fine. I wasn't fine. I was sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night. I had lost nearly 20 pounds. I couldn't focus at work. I flinched every time my phone buzzed. My therapist was patient. She didn't try to rush me into forgiveness. I appreciated that. People love preaching forgiveness when they aren't the ones who were betrayed. My therapist said something that stuck with me. Forgiveness is not the same as access. I wrote that down, because that became the foundation of everything. Maybe someday I would forgive Lauren. Maybe someday I would forgive my father. But neither of them would ever have access to me again. Not my time. Not my emotions. Not my home. Not my future. The divorce finalized 7 months after discovery. Lauren cried in the courthouse hallway. My father didn't attend. Of course he didn't. By then they were barely speaking. I signed the papers with a hand that shook slightly. Not because I wanted to stay married. Because signing them felt like closing a coffin. The marriage was already dead. The paperwork was just burial. Afterward, my attorney shook my hand. You're free. I nodded. But I didn't feel free yet. Freedom, I learned, doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it comes slowly, in small moments. The first night I slept through until morning. The first meal I actually tasted. The first time I laughed without feeling guilty. The first weekend I didn't check my phone expecting disaster. The first time I walked through my apartment and realized nothing in it belonged to her. That was freedom. A month after the divorce finalized, my father left a letter in my mailbox. I don't know how he got my new address. Probably through some relative who thought they were helping. The letter was simple. No excuses this time. Just this. I lost your mother before she died. I lost myself after. Then I lost you because I was selfish. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I am ashamed. I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Maybe that sounds cruel. Maybe some people will say he reached out honestly and deserved something. But not every confession requires a reply. Sometimes shame can sit alone. Lauren found out I had moved. Of course she did. She sent a final email. At least I hope it was final. It said, I heard you're starting over. I hope she loves you better than I did. There was no she. But I didn't correct her. Let her imagine whatever she needed. That was her specialty anyway. Imagining stories where she was always tragic, always misunderstood, always one apology away from redemption. As for my father and Lauren, they didn't end up together. Shocking, I know. Their grand forbidden connection collapsed under the weight of reality. My father became lonely. Lauren became desperate. They blamed each other. He claimed she manipulated him. She claimed he preyed on her grief and insecurity. Both were probably true. Neither changed anything. They were adults. They chose this. Together. The last I heard, My father sold the house he shared with my mother. My aunt said she couldn't bear the thought of him living there anymore. Lauren moved to another city. One of her friends told me she was working on herself. Good. She should. Far away from me. As for me, I'm not magically healed. I still have bad nights. Some days the anger comes back without warning. Sometimes I miss the version of my wife that existed before I knew the truth. Then I remind myself that version might never have existed at all. Maybe she was always partly performance. Maybe I loved a person she pretended to be. That's a hard thing to accept. But I'm accepting it. Slowly, I started running again. I cook for myself. I bought new sheets. That sounds small, but it wasn't. For months, I couldn't sleep in any bed without remembering what I saw. New sheets helped. Then a new mattress. Then a new apartment. Then new routines. A new life built from small decisions. One day I came home from work, made dinner, turned on music, and realized I hadn't thought about Lauren for almost 6 hours. 6 hours. That felt like victory. Not dramatic, not cinematic, but real. And real is enough for me now. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if I'll marry again. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust someone the way I trusted Lauren. But I know this. I survived. I lost a wife. I lost a father. I lost the family story I thought I had. But I didn't lose myself. They wanted to rewrite what happened. They wanted me confused, angry, ashamed. They wanted me to carry the embarrassment of their choices. I won't. The shame belongs to them. The future belongs to me. Os silnie pradovženie dla varantu 3, ne baluchi dla kalishnia, ustil fnal nova Reddit updateu. Final update 3 years later. It's been 3 years since I discovered my wife was having an affair with my father. 3 years since my marriage ended. 3 years since my entire life exploded. I never thought I'd write another update, but something happened recently that felt like the final chapter. A lot has changed. The first year after the divorce was brutal. The second year was better. By the third year, I realized something surprising. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. The anger faded. The nightmares became less frequent. The memories stopped controlling me. I bought a house, got promoted twice, started traveling again. I even bought a small sailboat, something I had wanted for years but never made time for. Most importantly, I met someone. Her name is Emily. And before anyone asks, no, she didn't save me. Nobody can do that. I had already done the hard work. Therapy, healing, learning how to trust myself again. Emily simply entered my life when I was finally ready to let someone in. She's kind, honest, calm, the complete opposite of chaos. For the first time in years, I found myself looking forward to the future instead of mourning the past. About 8 months ago, I proposed. She said yes. Last weekend, we got married. It was a small ceremony. Close friends, family, people who had stood beside me through the worst period of my life. There was laughter. There were tears. Good tears. The kind I hadn't experienced in a very long time. As I stood there holding Emily's hand, I realized something. I wasn't thinking about Lauren. Not at all. The woman who once occupied every corner of my mind wasn't even part of that moment. And that's when I knew I was truly free. But here's where things get interesting. About 2 weeks after the wedding photos appeared online, I received an email from Lauren, the first contact in almost a year. The subject line was simple: "Congratulations." I almost deleted it. Curiosity won. The message was short, painfully short. She wrote, "You look happy. I always hoped you would find peace. Emily seems wonderful. I know I don't deserve to say this, but I'm sorry for everything. Seeing your wedding photos made me realize what I destroyed. I wish I could go back and make different choices. I hope you have the life you always wanted." That was it. No excuses, no blame, no manipulation. For the first time in years, it sounded honest. I sat there staring at the screen for a long time. Then I closed the email. And I never replied. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, because there was simply nothing left to say. The story was over. As for my father, I heard through relatives that he lives alone now. Lauren left him long ago. Apparently their relationship lasted less than a year after everything became public. Turns out secret affairs don't always survive reality. Who could have guessed? The last thing I heard was that they barely speak. The great love story that destroyed two families couldn't survive ordinary life. There's probably a lesson in that somewhere. If there is, it isn't mine to teach. A few days ago, I was cleaning out old boxes in my garage. I found a photograph from my first marriage. Years ago, that picture would have ruined my week. This time I looked at it for maybe 10 seconds. Then I smiled. Not because I missed it, because I survived it. I put the picture back in the box and continued cleaning. No anger, no sadness, no regret, just gratitude. If someone reading this is in the early stages of betrayal, I know how impossible it feels. I know it feels like your life is over. I thought the same thing. I was wrong. Sometimes the life you lose is the one that was holding you back from the life you were meant to have. 3 years ago, I lost my wife. I lost my father. I lost the future I thought belonged to me. Today, I have a better one. And that's where this story finally ends.